The artificial intelligence chatbot is suddenly everywhere, reaching 1 million users on Monday, just a week after it was released, according to its maker, OpenAI.
You cannot go and leave the old world behind and only look at the new world. In the pre-GPT era, there were a lot of things that were right. You don't leave them, you have to bring them together. When you look at November 30th, 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT. Me and Dheeraj, I remember we were sitting at my home. It's like, what changed? Even though that we had idea about the GPT a little bit, but there's something that more meaningful change that has happened at that point.
It kind of clicked in us that, look, we've always talked about conversations, but it was more Slack-like before 2022, where there was no intelligence. You still were having people talk to people through tickets and issues and opportunities. That was the big sort of light bulb moment, that conversational UI is not just about people to people, it's also people to machines, machines back to people as well.
We called it inversion of control.
What we're seeing now over the last 6 months or a year is that, especially with ChatGPT, really kind of changing the dynamics around the type of interface that people are used to when they're doing searches. Going from a response of a series of blue links that you have to read through and click through to now a transcript where you're literally writing now below the transcript, you're reading the transcript and adding to the transcript, getting further information from the agent.
Now the question is, when you come inside the enterprises, how do you really get the similar interface?
The big unlock there is the fact that we started to see technologies that were progressively building on one another. So you started to see transformers, you started to see what we call cross-attentional behavior. These are the ability to parse information probabilistically, but also understand how the input that's coming in from the human, how the information that's being sent across, the words that are being spoken or being typed, how they actually relate to one another.
In the world, when you look at it, how many people who could write and instruct the computer to do the work?
Early on, we didn't even have a language. We're going to punch these cards in, and that's the way to instruct the machine to know what we really meant. And then from there, we moved from atoms to bits. That was zeros and ones. So we used to call that machine language. And then we moved from that to a little bit more English, which is assembly language. We used to have these words like store and load and swap and compare and things like that, but very little English. Even that was a big deal with assembly. And then assembly, we moved to C. And then from C to Java was more English-like until, since GPT, it's English.
It's a big change.
The change was now computer has to learn human language to do the work.
Computers have traditionally been very deterministic, so they understand syntax really well, meaning the structure, like the grammar of how to speak English, right, as we learn it. But the reality is that there's also semantics. There's context within the words, there's slang. Now, how do you take that same sort of sensibility and bring it to your systems? So what we do is we basically, instead of trying to find hard matches in the data that the computer has, you start to look for soft matches. So if I'm asking for a car, it can give me a response about a vehicle. If I'm asking about automobile insurance, it knows that I'm asking about auto insurance. And so these types of what I would call soft matches for information retrieval became really easy. These soft matches allow APIs to be now accessible as tools to these agents, so they can actually use these tools to take action. These actions now allow for these workflows, for these agentic behaviors to seem like magic.
How do you do that?
Oh, magic.
Now, all of these surfaces, these services, these APIs that were existing for computers to talk to computers in a very regimented way are now opening up to be accessible to agents and humans using natural language.
A lot of modern AI tools since ChatGPT's launch can get really good on the unstructured data, but they haven't yet figured out the structured data problem. DevRev started before ChatGPT, and it was founded explicitly to try and figure out how to solve that structured data problem.
This is a powerful transition that allows us to actually have assistants and agents rather than having information retrieval systems.
The word agent was always attributed to people. In a group of 20 people, you give them the same information and you ask the same question to them. Let's say amongst those 20 people, we somehow vote this is the best answer. I gave that to the machine and asked that, okay, every time this kind of question comes, you use this recipe. This is the way that you have to think. Now I can bring 200 people, they're all thinking like that.
PGPT and DevRev was about integrated apps on a common infrastructure, common knowledge graph, a common search engine, a common analytics engine, a common workflow engine. So we were already in the path towards a highly integrated world. But then with agents, we're like, hey, apps and agents are also integrated. And they're both integrated with the human. So what does it mean to have people who are specialists work with apps, but also work with co-pilots called agents? And yet there are other places where you don't even need the human, where the agents are just autonomous.
It can help you co-create. It can go work in systems the same way that you would expect a colleague to. And in doing that, it's much more powerful in its application inside of a workplace.
I think computers a big step forward in the sense that we're going from search to answers now. And those answers can also have a response associated with them because it's a read-write tool.
So of course you can search them, but you can also link them and answer things which is more coherent and integrative. And finally reason on them, which is like, can I go back and forth on all this data and understand what the future could look like? I think going from search to answers to reasoning on sales data, on support data, on user data, product engineering data, on all the unstructured documents that you have in your document databases. All of this stuff is about taking a lot of the past stuff and moving to the future.
And what that allows is new types of agentic automation and agentic AI that isn't just able to read or summarize, but can create, can delete, can update across all of those systems because it has that context.
As we look forward to the next year or 2 years, I think reasoning is going to get significantly better. Reasoning is going to get better because we're going to understand how to create a better planner for different nuanced personas that require deep expertise, but also deep sort of insight, intuition. That has to be sort of brought into the planners, the brains behind all of these action-taking agents. So I think these are some areas where we're going to see tremendous potential, which I think is going to be really incredible.
A lot of AI is about really connecting back to the old world and to bring them into the world of bits one more time, make it engaging, make it intelligent, make it self-serve is basically what it means to bridge the past to the future. We talk a lot about context engineering is to understand people, understand departments, understand teams. Team intelligence is really about starting with me, and does the machine understand me really well? Does the machine understand my team? Does the machine understand my company? And does the machine have a good understanding of the world as well? Because there's worldly wisdom that's equally required when you're doing work. So bringing all of this together is like bridging the past to the future.